Welcome to the Professionals of the Inland Empire show with your host, John Tulac.
Welcome to another podcast of Professionals of the Inland Empire, affectionately known as PI. I'm John Tulac, international business attorney located in Claremont. I have the privilege of hosting this podcast and to accomplish a couple of goals that I think are really important. One is to showcase the amazing professional talent that we have right here in the Inland Empire. These are smart, interesting people in a variety of professional services, from banking to law to accounting to business consulting in a variety of different ways. And the business people in the Inland Empire need to know that these folks exist and are available to provide services to you. The other thing is, by doing so, we're encouraging that collaboration of professionals and business people within the Inland Empire, and that builds internal economic growth in the Inland Empire, something that we are strongly encouraging with our government agencies, whether at the county or the city level. So that's why we do the podcast, and that's why I have a lot of fun each week with a couple of great guests. And I've got two of my favorites today from Provisors, which is the premier professional networking group in the country. We have 4 groups of provisors in the Inland Empire and close to 110 members. And today I want to introduce to you Alan Herman of Alan Herman Associates. He is a marketing and branding guru. He is an absolutely amazing person in terms of being able to take your product or your service and make it so memorable that everybody wants to have it. And then we have Carol Marzuk, who's the executive Lion Tamer. She's a woman who knows how to go into any room and completely take it over. And she has carried out the idea of personal branding to an intensely effective level. So it's just a great pair to have today. Welcome, Alan and Carol, to Professionals of the Inland Empire. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Thank you, John.
So, Alan, I want to start with you because you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen trends and fads in marketing and copywriting and so on come and go. What's the secret to marketing and branding success? Tell us about it. Tell us about how you do things.
Well, it's interesting. There have been a lot of changes through the years, but still the substance remains where you have to find out what really is important to the customer, to the end user. Every client that anybody's got ultimately has an end user, whether they're a law firm or a manufacturing company or whatnot. And so it's important to ask questions and actually get in the field and find out what's really important for that end user. In my firm, we have a very strong upfront strategy and planning area. And then I'm very excited about the fact that once we do that part of it, we then are able to do all the execution. So you might say it's turnkey, where a client engages with us start to finish.
Okay, and I would imagine that sometimes you have a client come to you and they may have a product and no idea who their customer is or what the market really is. And then occasionally you have the rare experience of the Steve Jobs types who creates a product that nobody ever thought they needed because they never thought that such a product would exist. I imagine you treat those two very differently.
Well, the most interesting is when you have a client who thinks they know where the product and service should go to. And they might even go so far as to think that they know what are the special words to use and the special phrases. I had one client who thought that the product that they had, which was a technology product, should be sold on the basis of price. And it was for toxic spills in a manufacturing area, like an oil refinery. And then I talked to the oil refinery people, the plant manager, and find out they couldn't care less about price. And I said, well, what is important? And they said, staying out of jail. And so that completely meant that the client's ideas were in error. And subsequently, they actually could raise the price that they were going to sell.
So is that a typical experience that the client doesn't really know the customer, but really knows the product?
Well,
Not necessarily what the customer may want or what wants
well,
to.
that's very funny. With a small company like a startup or a small company, they're so involved in the product development that they really don't know all that much about the customer, the target customer at all. The little story that I just told about where the client got it completely wrong actually was for a Fortune 500 company. So you might say they really should have known better. So, and then in other cases, the client obviously knows exactly what they're doing. They've got very smart people in their company, and at that point, they're really great in terms of guidance.
Okay. So sometimes you know what you have, and you know who it's for, but you may not know how to tell somebody why they really need it, because you're ideally meeting the needs and the wants of the customer,
Yeah.
not
Well,
the great thing that your product can do, right?
yes. The most important thing I do for a client is differentiate them. That's very important, because there's a lot of people that do similar things, no matter what their line of work. And so my job is to really pull out the unique selling propositions, and then with creativity, with ideas and whatnot, make something that's fun and memorable.
Okay. So we don't rehearse this. Those of you who've been listening to previous episodes or watching know that. But Alan just gave me the perfect segue to start talking with Carol. And Alan, we're going to come back to the differentiation
Yeah.
in a little bit to you. But here's someone who really truly has differentiated herself in what would appear to be a crowded marketplace about dealing with workplace issues, workplace conflict, and tensions that arise. So Carol, you became the executive Lion Tamer, which just makes me smile every time I think of that particular phrase. So how did you get there? How did you become the executive Lion Tamer?
Well, I was talking about one of my clients. I work with a lot of litigators, as you might think, and a lot of surgeons and a lot of CEOs. And one of my litigators, we had lunch about a month before he called me in a panic. And at that lunch, he said to me, I know why they referred you in to work with me. Here's the thing, I don't need you. They need you because they need to learn, they meaning the office staff, the paralegals, the associates, the other partners. They need to figure it out because I'm bringing in a ton of money. And so I don't need to change. They need to change. And so I just said, I totally get that. Here's my card. And if you know of anyone that's coachable, give them my card. And left. And about a month later, I thought he'd throw away my card, but I did it anyways. And about a month later, he called me in a panic. And, I was tired. I'll be honest with you. When I'm tired, I think things are ultra funny. So he calls me and he says, do you remember me? Well, I just threw a chair across the room and hit an associate. And, and these are the conference room chairs. And I said, yeah, of course I remember you. And I said, so what happened? Well, I hit her. Well, I didn't hit her. I grazed her shoulder. And so I said, so are you calling because you need better aim? Why are you calling? Like, what made you call now? And he said, well, they told me that you're the one to make this lawsuit go away. And now I'm coach. You said I had to be coachable. I never said that, but it's interesting how they internalize messages, back to like what Alan was talking about, like really understanding your audience. he internalized it. And so when I was talking about that client actually at a provisor's meeting in San Diego, another provisor's member said, "Hey, you know what you are? You're a lion tamer. You're an executive lion tamer." And after that, it just kind of stuck, and my clients love it. They they send me things like this. They send me lions that are all over my office, and they just love it. So that's how I came to be known as the executive lion tamer.
Okay. There's always an origin story, and it's always a good one, right? But I'm thinking of, lawyers are some of the worst employers around, and so that doesn't surprise me that this comes out of a lawyer. It gives a whole new meaning to the term chairman, not a good one, but
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you don't go to law school to learn how to manage office staff or how to coach people that you work with or how to elevate them. You go to law school to learn the law and to protect your clients. So it makes sense.
And then there's the type A aggressive personality and the egos involved, and everyone's crazy except me and thee, and I have my doubts about thee. So I know what you're putting up with in that kind of a personality. My goodness.
Yes, I love it. They make me salivate. Every time when I hear like, "Oh, this is going to be such a tough one, Carol. I don't even think that they're going to want to be coached. I don't think they're going to be open to it." Those are the best ones because they turn out to be the ones that are in the most need emotionally. So, given the opportunity, within 10, 15 minutes, they're like, "Oh, thank God, I have a place to let down my guard, not have to wear a mask, and just be myself."
Okay. And speaking of props, besides the lions that we see in the background, and the whip was a good touch too. I see the Taming Corporate Beast, which is a book that you wrote. So how does that get somebody started to know? Because reading the book can give you a lot of good advice, but people rarely carry out advice from a book. Does this then lead into, I really need to talk to Carol because I'm out of control?
That's a good question, John. To be honest, the reason I wrote the book is because I've been speaking for over 30 years. And when I do speaking engagements, they always ask me, "Where's your book? Where's the book that tells us about all your real life cases?" And I didn't have one. I've been working on one forever. I didn't have one. And so finally I put together all of the major ones or the most notorious ones, with famous people, etc. Names were changed, but I put them all together in a book. And then I also shared how I switched them from Scar to Mufasa, and so I give you the tools in the book, given the real cases that I've helped.
Okay, so now I'm going to sound like Oprah. Read the book because the stories are great. I've heard Carol's stories. These are good.
Thank you. They're fun.
So going back to you, Alan, you are very good with the visuals, and you have always had good ones to share with us. Did you bring a couple for us for today to show and tell?
Matter of fact, I did.
Oh, I knew you would. The floor is yours. Show us.
I don't know if this will come across on the Zoom, but one that I use a lot because it would represent our branding activity is this one right here. The fact that we turn ducks into swans.
That is classic.
And that would be applicable to really a lot of businesses. I was mentioning differentiation a few minutes ago, and I've got a visual that kind of depicts that. I have a CPA client, and when we started working with them, normally I asked right up front, what differentiates you from other CPA firms? And they said, "Well, we offer a great service." And I then respectfully say, "That's great, but that is that is a prerequisite. It's not a unique selling proposition. So then they started telling me that they go to the client site. And I said, well, does every firm do that? No, most times people come to their office. They go to the client site. So what that did is that really inspired me to create a program where we're showing them actually in the different costumes, uniforms and whatnot that they would be wearing for these various companies. And of course, what's important here is you've got to have a client that really wants to have some fun with it. Not everybody, goes along with the concept, but they did, and it made for something very memorable.
I'm a firm believer in visiting my clients where the opportunity arises. I want to see what they do and where and how they do it. It helps me prepare their agreements better. It also helps me identify what might be risks in their particular environment that they may need to address, whether it's moving parts and there's not a yellow line that tells people, especially visitors, stay back from there, or there's sometimes it's a time and motion thing that it's too busy, and so you're creating an opportunity in the warehouse for the forklift to collide with somebody who's carrying a box or several of things to put back. They're just little things that you take for granted when it's yours, but somebody else with fresh eyes comes in and say, hey, that's a problem. It seems to me, Alan, that your eyes are always fresh on a client in terms of what they have and where it can go. You see things that they don't see.
Well, I agree with you. I really like in-person meetings. People say, well, we could do this on Zoom, and I really don't want to. I want to get into the company no matter what their line of work is. And then to your point, that's oftentimes where you see the answer to the marketing question. And sometimes the client will actually, in conversation, say something that's like a headline. And that always astounds me. And I write it right down, and
you give it back to them.
Oh yeah, boy, you're really clever. I mean, that's really great. But that doesn't happen all the time. But it's unbelievable. They live their company so intensely that sometimes they just miss some of the interesting innuendo that really makes a difference.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense, John, if I may.
Absolutely.
So one of my clients, now you're talking about going to visit and why it's so important. One of my clients, this was years ago, CEO of a really, really huge global company. And he said that, he's like, I don't understand. I'm really approachable. People are telling me I'm not approachable. And so I said, well, let me just shadow you for a little bit. And I went to see him. And the first thing that I noticed was that his office was completely removed from the general population, like just completely, on the third floor, and everybody else was on the first floor. And so that's number one. And then number two, things that don't come across on Zoom or on phone calls is you notice how people respond or react to just his presence. And then you also notice the body language. So as he's walking through, what he's doing with his arms, what his face is doing, which is completely betraying him. And all of this is communication, just like radio signals, right? We're all radio signals. So I would never have picked all of that or any of that up had I just been doing it on Zoom. So it's a really powerful thing to be able to meet them where they are.
Yeah. I want to add to what Carol just commented on. I mentioned that I have an upfront strategy planning mode before we start creating ideas. And this is really kind of amusing. Oftentimes the client will have maybe 3 or 4 people sitting at the table. And we start out talking about really pretty, not very difficult subjects like what are your company objectives? What are your goals? And one person will say, well, I don't know if we really need to discuss this because we all agree on what the goals are. So I said, tell me, humor me. So one person says, well, it's this. And then another one pops up and says, no, that's not our goal at all. And then so finally you have 3 or 4 people all having different viewpoints of what their key goals and objectives are. And you know what? I'm realizing this plays right into Carol's universe.
It really does, because she's the one that goes into the lion's den all the time. You're mostly there on site because you have to be. And it's, I would think that you don't have the same problem with a sole proprietor, except I have found that oftentimes the person who's basically the entire shop doesn't have any clue what the real goals are. Just only the vaguest way of expressing what success might actually look like. So that can be even more difficult than a room full of people disagreeing on what the company is really standing for.
And it really helps you see how our perceptions that we are all aligned and that other people know what we're trying to accomplish and that they know, all of that. It's just so skewed. It's so skewed.
Years ago, I was supposed to introduce this person. I had no idea who he was. I tried 4 times to get something out of him during dinner about, I'm going to introduce you. Oh, everybody knows who I am. It doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. I got nothing from him. So it was time to introduce him. I said, and now a man who needs no introduction. And I sat down. He was so angry with me afterwards. I asked you 4 times.
He's the one that told you he needs no introduction.
Right. I gave him what he asked for.
Yeah.
It's not what he wanted.
So funny.
But I would think that that's really a problem that you both face, although in very different ways, probably. You come back, Alan, with something that says that doesn't look anything at all like what we had in mind. And Carol, you probably have your ways of just putting the bullies and the others who are out of control in their place in ways that they absolutely never expected.
And don't feel. And then I make them laugh around it. And then they're like, thank you. We didn't even know what we were doing at the moment that we were doing it. Yeah, it's so fun.
It's a knack. My youngest daughter, when she was even tiny, she was just barely walking. She always had her way with animals. And you could have a cat going just psycho kitty, and she'd just go pick it up, and the cat would go, thank you. It just instantly the rapport. I imagine it takes a little longer to build when you're dealing with the lion as opposed to the cat.
Well, I'll tell you what, John. I think that it takes a lot shorter than you might think because people want to move away from pain. And if they're dishing out pain to others, that means they're in a terrible amount of pain themselves. And so the minute I offer up, hey, here's your solution to not be in so much pain, even though I don't say it like that because they don't even know they're in pain. If the minute I offer that up, it's this relief. It's so quick. It's so quick.
So you're as much of a psychiatrist, psychologist, counselor as anything else, right?
Yeah. I have my certifications in life coaching. I obviously psychology, organizational development, and all of the mind and neuroscience stuff as well. But you got to, because I end up saving marriages. I'm on my 9th marriage that I'm saving right now because
I'm glad you qualified that.
I know. I haven't been married that long or that many times. I have been married a long time, but But yeah, so yeah, you have to kind of go to all aspects of their life, just like Ellen, to all aspects of the company to figure out really where the message should be.
Okay. And Alan, in sort of the same way, you've got to do the same thing. You're doing it for a different purpose, but you have to figure out the psychology of the customer,
Yes.
and match it to what the client is expecting out of the product.
Yeah, yeah. All clients are uh, really different. Through the years, I've had hundreds of clients, and uh, they're all different, and most of them are just wonderful people. Not all the time, but for the most part, they're really very nice people, and their staffs are, but they're all different. Every company is a little bit different from the next one, and so yeah, you have to. Uh, Although you are giving advice, you're coming in a consulting way. You have to somewhat adapt to the structure of their company too, and fortunately, I enjoy that. I enjoy that.
And it shows. So Carol, I know how much you enjoy it, and your content on LinkedIn is always very dynamic and very interesting. I get a kick out of it, and in these short little bits, you can learn a lot. So that's obviously one of the ways by which you call attention to yourself, and part of that differentiation, because there's a lot of ways you can deal with conflict in the workplace, right?
Yes, and thank you for saying that. That means a lot to me.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of the looking, and I certainly I don't do much posting, but I do recognize and appreciate good content when I see it. So I wanted to point that out. And
Thank you.
yeah, Alan, is that something that you work with a lot in terms of in establishing the brand and taking it out? Is that something that you spend time with on the social media, or do you leave that to others to carry out the framework that you've created?
Yeah, social media is to a large extent something I collaborate with others on. However, I personally I'm very involved with LinkedIn, and then because all of my work, virtually all of it, is business to business, LinkedIn would be the key platform for almost anybody that I'm working with. And so their experiences and their knowledge of LinkedIn is often really requires assistance from us. So in answer to your question, yes, LinkedIn is an important element.
Okay. So I thought of one last question. It's not something I had thought to mention to you ahead of time, but I just want to get your take on it. And that is that everybody's thinking today about artificial intelligence and the different platforms and where that may be taking us. So are you using AI at all in what you do and how you do it? So Alan, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, actually, I do. I do use it, but not. I use it really for almost another take. For instance, I mentioned some of our early work with a client is in field research. It might have to do with target markets. So there, our AI is very useful in making sure you don't miss something. You don't miss a target market. The creative work that I do, almost all of it comes from actually me personally. That is my background. So I wouldn't want to compete with AI. And I enjoy it too much. So I don't have AI write my headlines or come up with the graphic concept. But if I'm doing a proposal, I'd be very interested in what an AI take on my draft would look like. And sometimes it picks up phrases that are really good. And so I may use some of the phraseology. So again, I'm looking at it as an assistant. I don't run creative ideas through AI. Maybe 10 or 20 years ago, 10 or 20 years from now, advertising agencies, design firms, marketing firms are going to be much, much more reliant on it. In fact, they might ask AI to do all the work, and that's not really something I want to get involved in.
I certainly understand that one. The question occurred to me, Alan, because I laboriously worked on creating a logo prior to the launch of this podcast, and I used AI to help generate it because I'm terrible at drawing and so on. And then I showed that to Alan, and he promptly came up with 3 much better designs that when we get to the 10 episode mark, we're going to do a little timeout, do some assessment of what's working, not working, and we're going to do some changing out, including using a much better design for our intro to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that.
Thank you, Alan, for doing that. So, Carol, what about you? Are you using AI at all in anything that you're doing?
Oh, yeah. I use it primarily for 3 things. Number 1, to translate. So I speak Spanish fluently. I'm from Mexico City. But sometimes I have to speak in French. I have clients in France and China. And although they speak English, it's kind of fun to be able to say some things in their native language. And also just to translate in other languages of people that I speak to in other countries. So that's awesome. I use it for that. The other thing I use it a lot for is images, to come up with an image to explain, kind of like what you were saying about the logo, to explain exactly what I want to convey in my message. And so I've gotten a little bit better at prompting them to give me the kind of image that I need. And then the last thing, my clients, when we're in coaching sessions, we will, they'll ask me a question and I'll say, well, let's put that document in AI and see what it thinks, right? After we talk about it, or like to extract some things that we really need to pay attention to because it's an operations agreement or something that a partner is asking them to look at or something. And so like, let's take a look at AI, at what they say and see if that makes sense. And so it just cuts the time down so much and it just makes it so much more efficient. So it's important that we never allow AI to kind of make the decisions for us, but it's good as a helper.
Absolutely. It's a tool, not a crutch. And, I've retired from teaching at university and law school, but I'm still an educator at heart. And I'm just appalled at how AI is being misused by students to do the work. It's a crutch instead of a tool, to the point where I had to tell our faculty still teaching the business and law of engineering course that all the homework's being done by AI now. If you're going to keep using the same assignments, you need to be grading the prompts. Make them show you the prompts because nobody's generating their own answers anymore to the required homework assignments, and that's kind of sad. For another time, I'll share with you where I'm going with my educational mission, which is for business people. But for now, I want to thank our 2 terrific guests, Alan Herman and Carol Marzuk, for a very stimulating, a little more than a half hour. And you could tell we could keep going and going and have a lot of fun. But for now, I want to say so long for now and encourage you to check out the previous editions of Professionals of the Inland Empire and stay tuned for the next one. We'll see you soon. Bye now.
Thanks for watching or listening to, depending on the case, the Professionals of the Inland Empire show with your host, John W. Tulac. If you have a suggestion for a guest, email him at jwtulac, that's JWTULAC @gmail.com. jwtulac @gmail.com.